The shuttle landed on the Academy grounds just as the twin suns began to set. Park stepped out with 11 other humans, the first of their kind to ever attend the Galactic Integration Academy. She carried a small bag over her shoulder and wore simple clothes. Nothing about her stood out. She was average height, average build, with black hair tied back in a neat ponytail. Her face was calm and her eyes were soft. The academy was massive. Buildings made of white stone and blue metal stretched toward the orange sky. Thousands of students from dozens of species walked the paths between them. Some had scales, some had fur, some had no faces at all, just clusters of sensing organs that turned toward the new arrivals. A tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms greeted them at the entrance. Its name was Advisor, and it would guide them through their first week, explain the rules, the schedules, and the expectations. The humans listened carefully. They were here to prove that their species deserved a place among the stars. When it came time to choose seats in their first class, most of the humans moved toward the middle rows. They wanted to be seen. They wanted to show they were eager and ready to learn, but walked past them. She climbed the steps to the very back of the room and sat in the corner seat next to the wall. The leader of the human group watched her go. He had been told that all 12 humans were carefully selected: scientists, diplomats, engineers, and cultural experts. File said she had done administrative work for the Earth Coalition, filing and reports, wondered why someone who pushed papers had been chosen to represent humanity. The classroom filled with students. There were over 60 of them from at least 20 different species. They sat near the front. They were huge, nearly 8 feet tall, with dark red skin and claws that could cut through metal. Their ancestors had been the top predators on their home world for millions of years. They had heat-sensing pits on their faces that let them see warm bodies even in total darkness. They sat in a group to the left. They were smaller than but moved with quick, sharp motions. They were pack hunters. On their planet, they had worked together to bring down creatures 100 times their size. Their eyes were yellow and always watching. They were harder to spot. They blended into their seats, their skin changing color to match the material. They were ambush predators. They waited, perfectly still, and then struck with venom that could stop a heart in seconds. These were the predator species. They had earned their place at the top of their food chains through millions of years of evolution. They were proud and confident. They feared nothing. But something strange happened when the class began. The instructor, an old name, started his lecture on galactic history. The students took notes. Everything seemed normal. But one by one, the predators in the room began to shift in their seats. They turned their heads toward the back. They kept glancing over their shoulders. Even they, who rarely moved at all, adjusted their positions so they could see the corner of the room. They were all looking at. She did not notice at first, or perhaps she did notice and simply did not react. She sat with her on the desk, writing notes in neat handwriting. Her posture was relaxed. Her breathing was slow and even. She looked like the least threatening being in the room. But the predators could not stop watching her. After the class ended, caught up with one of the students in the hallway. This name was, and he was one of the largest in his group. His claws scraped against the floor as he walked. "Can I ask you something?" said. Looked down at him. Humans were small and weak. Their skin was soft. They had no claws, no fangs, no venom. They should have been nothing. Ask said. "In class today, you kept looking at the back row, at the human woman. Why?" Was silent for a long moment. His heat pits flickered as he processed the question. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower than before. "I do not know," he admitted. "Something about her is wrong, not wrong like broken, wrong like dangerous. My body tells me to watch her. My instincts say she is a threat. But when I look at her, I see nothing. She is small. She is quiet. She writes notes." He shook his massive head. "It does not make sense, but I cannot ignore it." Thanked him and walked away. He found the other humans in the dining hall and sat with them for the evening meal. They talked about their classes, their roommates, and their hopes for the program. They were excited to be here. They wanted to make friends and learn about the galaxy. Sat at the end of the table, she ate slowly and said little. When someone asked her a question, she answered with a smile and a few words. She seemed friendly. She seemed harmless. But notice something. The dining hall was crowded with hundreds of students. Many of them were predator species. And even though the hall was loud and busy, there was a circle of empty space around. No one sat within 3 seats of her. The predators walked past her table with quick steps, their eyes sliding away as if they did not want to look directly at her. Later that night, accessed the student database and searched for Park's file. Most of it was blocked. Large sections were marked as classified. The parts he could read mentioned administrative work, just as he had been told. But there were also medals listed, commendations from military branches he had never heard of, dates that did not match any public records. He closed the file and stared at the ceiling of his room. The Academy had accepted 40 species into its program. Many of them were predators who had conquered their worlds through strength and violence. They were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. And all of them were afraid of a quiet woman who sat in the back row and took neat notes. Did not sleep well that night. He kept thinking about words. Something about her is wrong. He kept thinking about the empty seats around her in the dining hall. He kept thinking about her file, 90% hidden, and the medals that should not exist. He did not know what Park really was, but he was beginning to understand that administrative work had nothing to do with why she was here. Outside his window, the twin suns rose over the academy. A new day was beginning, and somewhere in the dormitory below was already awake, sitting by her window, watching the door. 2 weeks passed at the Galactic Integration Academy. The humans attended their classes, made friends with other species, and learned about the galaxy's history and politics. They were doing well. The instructors praised their curiosity and their ability to adapt. The other students were beginning to accept them. But the situation with only grew stranger. Had been watching carefully. He kept notes of every odd thing he noticed. The list was getting long. On the 3rd day, a group of students changed their usual path through the dormitory building. They started using a longer route that avoided the floor where lived. When asked one of them about it, the shorter path felt wrong and refused to explain further. On the 5th day, a student approached in private. There were master hunters who could stay perfectly still for hours. They were known for their patience and their calm nature, but this one was trembling slightly. The human female, they said. The one with the tied hair, what is she? She is human, replied, just like me. The shook its head. No, not just like you, you are readable, your body tells me things. Your heart rate, your breathing, your small movements. I can understand you, but her, the paused. Her body tells me nothing. It is like watching a stone. And yet every part of me screams that she is hunting, always hunting, even when she sits still. On the 8th day, the instructor requested a meeting with the human delegation. He was old and wise, with scars on his face from battles long past. He had taught at the academy for 40 years. He had seen thousands of students from hundreds of species. Nothing surprised him anymore. But surprised him. I must speak to you about one of your people, said. His voice was rough and his translator struggled to find the right words. The quiet one, the female who sits in the back. Nodded. Park, what about her? Leaned forward. His yellow eyes were intense. I am a predator. My species has hunted for millions of years. I know danger. I know threat. When I look at most beings, I can tell if they are strong or weak, fast or slow, harmless or deadly. It is instinct. It is never wrong. He paused and took a slow breath. When I look at your Park, my instincts go mad. They tell me she is the most dangerous thing in any room she enters. They tell me she has killed more times than I can count. They tell me I should run or fight or hide. His claws clicked against the table. But when I look at her with my eyes, I see a small female who smiles and writes notes. She does not bare her teeth. She does not raise her voice. She gives no warning at all. And that bothers you, said. It terrifies me, admitted. All predators display their threat. It is how we communicate. It is how we avoid unnecessary fights. A shows its claws, a growls, a changes color. We warn before we strike. It is natural, it is right. He shook his head slowly. Your female does not warn, she hides everything. And that is not natural, that is something else entirely. Returned to the human quarters that evening with a heavy mind. He found in the common room reading a book on her. The other humans were scattered around, talking and laughing. But there was space around. There was always space around her. He sat down across from her. She looked up and smiled. It was a warm smile, friendly and open. Her eyes crinkled at the corners. She looked like someone's kind older sister. Can we talk? He asked. Of course, she said. She set her aside and gave him her full attention. What did you do before the program, really? She tilted her head slightly. My file says administrative work, filing and reports. Your file is 90% classified, said. I checked. There are medals listed that don't exist in any database I can find. There are dates that don't match any public military records. Was quiet for a moment. Her expression did not change. Her body did not move. She simply looked at him with those soft, calm eyes. You are very curious, she said. The predator species are afraid of you, pressed. All of them. They don't know why, they just feel it. Even instructor, he says you don't give any warning. He says that's unnatural. Nodded slowly. I understand why that would bother them. So what are you? What did you really do? She was silent for a long time. The common room was quiet around them. The other humans had stopped talking. They were all listening now, pretending not to. Finally spoke. Her voice was soft and even the same as always. Humans are different from other predators, she said. We did not evolve claws or fangs or venom. We were not the strongest or the fastest. On our home world we were prey for many creatures. Lions, wolves, bears, things that could tear us apart. She folded her hands in her lap. But we survived, do you know how? Shook his head. Persistence, said. We could not catch our prey in a sprint, so we chased them for hours, for days. We walked and walked until they collapsed from exhaustion. And because we were prey ourselves, we learned to hide. We learned to mask our fear, our aggression, our intentions. Showing emotion was dangerous. It attracted predators. So we learned to be still, to be quiet, to give nothing away. She smiled again, and this time saw something behind it. Something old and patient and very, very controlled. I spent 30 years doing a job that required me to be invisible, she said. To walk into places where I should not be, to do things that should not be possible, and then to walk out again as if nothing had happened. I was very good at my job. What job? Whispered. Stood up, she picked up her and tucked it under her arm. The kind of job that gets classified, she said. The kind of job where warning your enemy is the last thing you ever want to do. She walked away, her footsteps soft on the floor. The other humans watched her go. No one spoke for a long time. Sat in his chair and stared at the empty seat across from him. He thought about what it said. She does not warn. She hides everything. And now he understood why. Humans had learned to survive by becoming invisible. They had learned to hunt by never showing their true nature. And somewhere in humanity's history, they had taken that skill and turned it into something terrifying. The alarm came without warning. Red lights flashed through the hallways. A voice spoke through every speaker in the academy, ordering all students to gather in the main assembly hall. It was not a drill. The voice was too urgent for that. Park was in the library when the alarm sounded. She closed her book, stood up calmly, and walked toward the assembly hall with the flow of students. Her pace was steady. Her face showed no emotion. Around her, other students were whispering nervously. Some were running. She simply walked. The main hall was enormous. It could hold over 1,000 beings at once. By the time arrived, nearly 200 students were already inside. More were coming through the doors every minute. The humans had gathered together near the middle of the hall, was counting heads, making sure everyone was safe. Then the doors slammed shut. Armed soldiers poured out from hidden passages behind the stage. There were at least 40 of them, all wearing black armor and carrying plasma rifles. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and sharp teeth. Their eyes were cold and focused. A larger one stepped forward. He wore a red band on his arm, marking him as the leader. He raised his weapon and fired a single shot into the ceiling. The sound echoed through the hall, and everyone went silent. "We are the Liberation Front of the Dominion," the leader announced. His voice was harsh and metallic through his helmet. "This academy is now under our control. You are our hostages. If the Galactic Council meets our demands, you will live. If they refuse..." He let the sentence hang in the air. The students were frozen with fear. Despite their size and strength, did not move. The plasma rifles could burn through their thick skin in an instant. They stayed still, their pack instincts telling them that fighting now would mean death. Even they remained visible, knowing that their venom meant nothing against armored soldiers with ranged weapons. The leader walked through the crowd. He was looking for someone important, someone whose death would send a message. His eyes passed over the humans with contempt. They were a new species, barely known in the galaxy, not valuable enough. Then he spotted a young student sitting near the front. She was small and trembling, her skin flickering colors in panic. The daughter of a Galactic Council member. Perfect. He grabbed her by the arm and dragged her to the center of the hall. She cried out in pain. He pressed a plasma blade to her throat, and the hot edge of the weapon made her skin sizzle. "One hostage will die every hour until our demands are met," the leader announced. "This one will be first. We will begin in 60 minutes. The hall was silent. No one moved, no one spoke. Sat in the back row where she always sat. Her hands were folded in her lap. Her breathing was slow and even. She watched the leader and his soldiers with calm, steady eyes. She had counted them when they entered. 42 soldiers, 12 near the doors, 8 on the stage. 22 spread through the hall in pairs. The leader was in the center with the hostage. His grip on the blade was confident. He had done this before. Did not move. The minutes passed slowly. Students whispered to each other. Some were crying. The predator species were struggling with their instincts, wanting to fight but knowing they would die. The humans huddled together, terrified. Looked toward the back of the hall. He found in her usual spot. She was not crying. She was not whispering. She was completely still, like a statue carved from stone. And then he saw her eyes. They were different now. The softness was gone. What remained was cold and calculating. She was looking at the soldiers, but not with fear. She was looking at them the way a hunter looks at prey. She was studying their positions, their movements, their weaknesses. Felt a chill run down his spine. 55 minutes had passed. The leader checked his timepiece and smiled. He raised the blade higher against the girl's throat. She whimpered in fear. 5 minutes, he announced. Say your goodbyes. The lights went out. For exactly 4 seconds, the hall was plunged into complete darkness. There was no emergency lighting. There was no glow from weapons or armor, just pure, absolute black. In that darkness, something moved. When the lights came back on, no one understood what they were seeing. Park stood in the center of the hall. She was 3 feet away from the leader, but the leader was no longer standing. He was on the ground, screaming. His weapon arm was bent in 3 places, the bones shattered. The plasma blade had fallen from his grip. Around her, 12 soldiers lay unconscious on the floor. Their weapons were scattered. Some of them had broken limbs. Some of them were clutching their throats, gasping for air. None of them were dead. The other soldiers raised their rifles, but they hesitated. They had not seen her move. They had not heard her approach. One moment she had been in the back of the hall. The next moment she was here, surrounded by their fallen comrades. Turned to face them. Her expression was calm. Her voice was soft. "I was asked to show restraint during this program," she said. "I am showing it. Your friends are alive. They will recover. But if you do not surrender now, I cannot promise the same for you." The soldiers looked at each other. They looked at their leader, writhing on the ground in agony. They looked at the 12 bodies scattered around this small, quiet human woman. One of them dropped his weapon, then another, then all of them. In less than 30 seconds, 28 armed soldiers surrendered to a woman who had not even raised her voice. Walked over to the girl and helped her stand. The girl was shaking badly, her skin still flickering with stress colors. Spoke to her gently, softly, like a mother comforting a frightened child. "You are safe now," said. "No one will hurt you." The girl looked at her with wide eyes. She had seen what happened in those 4 seconds of darkness. She had felt the wind as moved past her, faster than anything she had ever known. "What are you?" the girl whispered. Smiled. It was the same warm smile she always wore, the same smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "I am human," she said simply. Academy security arrived minutes later. They found the situation already resolved. 42 soldiers captured, none killed, minimal injuries to hostages. They found a small human woman sitting in the back row, writing notes on her as if nothing had happened. No one knew exactly what had occurred in those 4 seconds of darkness. But every predator in that hall had felt something ancient wake inside them, something that screamed at them to run, to hide, to never make eye contact with the quiet woman in the back row. They had seen the most dangerous human in the galaxy reveal herself. The Galactic Council chamber was built to impress. It was a massive circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers around a central platform. Representatives from over 50 species sat in those seats, their translators humming quietly as they waited. The chamber had hosted discussions about wars, treaties, and the fate of entire civilizations. Today, it would host a discussion about humans. Stood on the central platform. She was the human ambassador, a woman in her 50s with gray streaks in her black hair and a face that had learned to hide its emotions long ago. Behind her, a holographic display showed images of the Academy incident, the captured soldiers, the hostages, and Park sitting calmly in the back row. The High Speaker was the first to demand answers. He was enormous even by standards, his red skin covered in ceremonial scars. "Your species has been in this galaxy for less than 50 years, he growled. "You came to us as newcomers. You asked for peace and partnership. You told us you were harmless." He pointed one massive claw at the holographic image of "Explain this." Took a slow breath. She had prepared for this moment for weeks. She had known it would come eventually. "What you saw at the Academy was not an attack," she began. "It was a rescue. Our representative protected your children from terrorists. She used the minimum force necessary. No one died." "That is not what we are asking," the representative interrupted. Her yellow eyes were sharp with suspicion. "We are asking how a single human, with no weapons and no armor, defeated 42 trained soldiers in 4 seconds. We are asking why every predator species in that room felt fear when they looked at her. We are asking what you are hiding from us." The chamber fell silent. Every eye was on. She nodded slowly. "Very well. I will tell you the truth about humanity, but I warn you it may not be comfortable to hear." She pressed a button on her console and the holographic display changed. It showed an image of Earth, blue and green and white, floating in the darkness of space. "Our home world is beautiful," said, "but it is also deadly. The planet we evolved on was filled with predators far larger and stronger than us. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves, creatures with claws and fangs and speed we could never match. By all logic, we should have gone extinct millions of years ago. She changed the image again. This time it showed ancient humans, small and vulnerable, standing on a vast grassland. But we survived. Do you know how? We became persistence predators. We could not catch our prey in a sprint, so we chased them for hours, sometimes for days. We walked and walked until the animal collapsed from exhaustion, and then we killed it. Our bodies evolved to cover distances no other creature could match. We became the marathoners of our world. The representatives were listening intently now. Some of them had never heard this before. But that is only part of the story, continued. We were also prey. We had to hide from the creatures that hunted us. And over millions of years, we developed something unique. We learned to control our bodies completely. We learned to hide our emotions, our intentions, our fear. Showing what you felt could attract a predator. So we learned to show nothing at all. She paused and looked around the chamber. Your species display their threat. It is natural for you. A shows its claws, a growls, a changes color. These displays serve a purpose. They warn enemies and prevent unnecessary fights, but humans never developed these displays. For us, showing aggression was dangerous. It told predators where we were, so we evolved to hide everything. The High Speaker leaned forward. You are saying that humans can mask their threat response completely. Yes, said, and over thousands of years we refined this ability. We created warriors who could walk into enemy territory without being detected. Soldiers who showed no fear, no anger, no warning. They could smile at you, shake your hand, and end your life in the same moment. We called them many things: spies, assassins, special operatives. She pressed another button. His image appeared on the display. Park served the Earth Coalition for 30 years, said. Her missions are classified. Her methods are classified, but I can tell you this much. She was one of our best. She was sent to this galaxy not as a warrior, but as a symbol of peace. We wanted to show that humans could integrate quietly. We wanted you to feel safe around us. Safe? The representative's voice was cold. You sent us a predator who hides her nature completely, and you expected us to feel safe. Met his eyes steadily. We sent you a predator who chose not to hunt. We sent you someone who could have killed every soldier in that room but instead broke their arms and let them live. We sent you someone who has spent her entire life surrounded by death but still smiles at children and helps frightened students. She spread her hands. We sent you the best of humanity. Someone who has every reason to be cruel but chooses to be kind. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, the representative spoke again. Her voice was quieter now, thoughtful. You said you wanted us to feel safe, but now we know the truth. How can we feel safe when we know what humans are capable of hiding? Smiled, it was a sad smile, full of understanding. You cannot, she admitted. And that is the point. Humans have always been dangerous. We destroyed our own kind in wars that killed millions. We created weapons that could burn entire cities to ash. We nearly ended our own civilization multiple times through our own violence. She paused. But we are still here. We survived. And we learned something important along the way. What did you learn? The High Speaker asked. That the most dangerous thing in the universe is not a creature with claws or fangs or venom. It is a creature that can choose. A creature that can decide to be cruel or kind, violent or peaceful, enemy or friend. His voice was steady. Humans are dangerous because we have the power to destroy, but we are valuable because we have the power to choose not to. She turned and looked at its image on the display. Park could have killed those soldiers. It would have been easier, faster, safer for her, but she chose to let them live. She chose restraint. She chose mercy. Turned back to the council. That is what humans hide, not just our threat, but our choice. And we choose again and again to reach for peace instead of war. The chamber remained silent as stepped down from the platform. The representatives looked at each other, uncertain what to say. They had asked what humans were hiding. Now they knew. 3 days passed after Ambassador's speech to the Galactic Council. The news spread through every station, every planet, every ship in known space. Everyone was talking about what had happened at the Academy. Everyone was talking about the human woman who defeated 42 soldiers in 4 seconds without killing a single one. Park returned to her classes on the 4th day. She walked through the academy halls with her bag over her shoulder, just like before. Her hair was tied back in its neat ponytail. Her face was calm and her eyes were soft. She looked exactly the same as she had on the first day. But everything around her had changed. The students no longer avoided her floor. Instead, when they passed her in the hallway, they stopped and lowered their heads. It was a gesture of respect, the same gesture they used for their own greatest hunters. Their claws clicked quietly against the floor as they waited for her to pass. The students no longer watched her with fear. Now they watched her with curiosity and something close to admiration. In their culture, the best hunters were those who could control themselves completely, had shown control they had never imagined possible. The students were the most changed of all. The young girl had saved, whose name was, had attached herself to the human woman like a shadow. She brought food from the dining hall. She saved seats for her in classes. She told everyone who would listen about the moment when it held her hand and told her she was safe. Accepted all of this with the same quiet patience she showed in everything. She thanked them for their respect. She answered the questions about human combat techniques. She shared her meals with and helped her with her studies. She was the most famous person in the galaxy, and she acted like nothing had changed at all. Instructor requested her help with his combat classes. He was old and wise, but he admitted that he had never seen anything like what she had done. He wanted to understand. He wanted to learn. And more than that, he wanted his students to learn. Agreed. She stood before a class of predator students and showed them how humans moved. She explained the principles of efficiency, of minimal force, of ending fights before they began. She demonstrated holds and strikes that targeted weaknesses common to most species. But mostly, she talked about choice. Violence is easy, she told them. Any creature can kill, any creature can destroy. The hard thing is knowing when not to. The hard thing is having the power to end a life and choosing to spare it instead. She looked around the room at the young predators watching her with wide eyes. That is what separates a killer from a warrior. A warrior fights because they must. A killer fights because they can. The students listened in silence. They had been raised to believe that strength was everything, that the strongest predator won and the weak died. But this small human woman was teaching them something different. She was teaching them that true strength was control. Found her one evening on the observation deck at the top of the Academy's tallest building. The twin suns had set, and the sky was filled with stars. Thousands of them, millions of them, stretching out into infinity. Stood at the window with her hands clasped behind her back. She did not turn when he approached. She had heard him coming long before he arrived. "I wanted to thank you," said, "for what you did for saving everyone." Shook her head slightly. "I did what needed to be done, nothing more." "You could have killed them," said. "It would have been easier." "Yes," agreed, "it would have." "But you didn't." "No." Was quiet for a moment. He looked out at the stars, trying to find the words for what he wanted to ask. "Does it bother you," he finally said, "that everyone knows now that they see you differently?" Considered the question. Her reflection in the window was faint, a ghost image overlaid on the infinite darkness beyond. "I have been seen differently my whole life," she said. "When I was young, people saw a quiet girl who kept to herself. When I was trained, my instructors saw a weapon to be sharpened. When I served, my enemies saw nothing at all until it was too late." She paused. "And now these students see something new. They see a hunter who chooses not to hunt. They see a predator who protects prey. I do not mind being seen this way. It is closer to the truth than anything before." "What is the truth?" asked. Turned to look at him. For just a moment he saw what the predators saw, not aggression, not threat, just absolute certainty. The calm, patient confidence of someone who had faced death 1,000 times and walked away every time. "The truth is that I am tired," she said. "I have spent 30 years fighting, hiding, surviving. I have done things that would give you nightmares for the rest of your life, and I am very, very good at what I do." She smiled, and the warmth returned to her eyes. "But I am also human, and humans are more than just hunters. We love, we hope, we dream. We build families and communities and civilizations. We are capable of terrible destruction, but we are also capable of incredible kindness." She turned back to the window. "I sit in the back row because I like watching the door," she said. "It is an old habit. I spent too many years in places where the door was the difference between life and death. But I also sit in the back row because I like watching people. I like seeing them learn and grow and discover new things. I like knowing that they are safe because I am there." Nodded slowly. He understood now, or at least he understood better than before. "You're protecting us," he said, "even now, even when there's no danger." "There is always danger," said softly. "That is why I am here." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were going about their lives, unaware of the quiet woman standing on the observation deck of a distant academy, unaware of the predator who had chosen to be a guardian instead. Had spent her whole life learning to survive. She had learned to hide her nature, to mask her threat, to move through the world like a ghost. She had learned to be invisible. But she had also learned something else, something more important. She had learned that the greatest strength was not in killing. It was in choosing not to. And as the stars wheeled slowly overhead, Park smiled her warm smile and watched the door. She always watched the door, because that was what protectors did. And they were not sure if that made them feel better or worse. And she had not even tried. Park was not a predator who displayed her strength. She was a predator who had learned that the best hunters were the ones you never saw coming. She always watched the door,